Welcome to the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast, where we believe most high net worth individuals and those who help them, they struggle with clarifying their capital gains tax deferral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy, and using a proven tax deferral strategy such as the Deferred Sales Trust is an amazing way for you to create and preserve more wealth, exit cryptocurrency, business, real estate, defer millions of dollars of capital gains tax, and help you create and preserve more wealth, or help your clients and friends and family do the same. We're also streaming on Expert CRE Secrets podcast as well. So appreciate everyone watching or listening there. Hey, I'm your host, Brett Swarts. In each episode, I'm joined by some of the best real estate, financial, and wealth, and sometimes crypto minds in the world, where they share their ideas, deal stories, and inspiration. So together we can make complex tax deferral strategies simple and passive income plans achievable. I'm excited about our next guest. He's out of the great state of New York, and he's on a mission to help to build a better financial future. He's going to share with us how to take your investing to new heights and grow your investments with unprecedented yields, with no lockup periods in digital assets. Please welcome to the show with me, Ivan Zhang. Ivan, how you doing?
Great, Brett. Thanks for having me here.
Absolutely. And for our listeners getting to know you for the first time, would you give us a little bit more about your story and your current focus?
Sure. So I've been in traditional financial services for over a decade. I was a portfolio manager at Bank of America for nearly a decade, and where we focused on fixed income investments for the bank's portfolio. So it was $400 to $500 billion of U.S. Treasuries, mortgage-backed securities, and I specialize in derivatives for hedging activities, so swaps, futures, and things like that. And we always been really interested in crypto ever since about 2013 is where we got involved. And we always been kind of on the passenger side of this by just doing a little bit of trading on the side, and eventually decided to go at it full time to develop a product that we think could benefit a lot of people, and especially when the product is essentially the intersection of our previous experience, fixed income investing and crypto. So really excited to be on the show and talk to you about Pennyworks and what we're doing here.
Absolutely, Ivan. And for other part to get to know you a little bit more too, I think we've all been given certain gifts in this life, and these gifts have been given to us to be a blessing and help to others. Some people call these gifts strengths, superpowers, right? So I'm wondering, maybe go back to your younger days. What would you say the one or two strengths or gifts that you believe you were given, and how does that help how you help and bless people today?
I think that I might have viewed them as strengths, but not everybody else. So, for example, I think I'm fairly stubborn. So that has given me the unique advantage to continue to pursue certain things despite the advice or just by everybody else. So, I mean, ever since I was very young, I really loved computers. And, my dad was like, hey, sure, yeah, if you love computers, we'll just give it a shot. And so I started building my own computer. I had no idea what I was doing. We spent thousands of dollars at the time, which was a lot of money for a computer. But it was the fact that, just trusted me to just discover and try things out, despite whether it's, I'm not sure if it's a good idea or not. And that's kind of essentially the skill that I learned, where you need some determination to get to the finish line, and not everything is super easy. So if you're going to give up very easily, you're really not going to get where you want to go. And so that helps.
Excellent. No, being stubborn and also being open-minded to discover and be determined. I think that those are great qualities, and I think that's cool that your parents trusted you to discover and just go out and kind of figure it out. Well, very cool. Well, let's using that theme or keeping that thought in mind, let's talk about the biggest secret to how to beat the banks at their own game with crypto. So, Ivan, what is the number one secret to beating the banks at their own game with crypto?
So the first kind of thing you have to understand about banks is they try to make a spread, right? So their core business is essentially borrowing at a low rate and then lending it at a high rate, right? And they like to do this so that they take the money in and then give it out as soon as possible, so that all the money is put to work. So one of those businesses is one that's some of the listeners might be familiar with, some of the listeners might even be benefiting from it. It's called stock margin lending. And it's basically the same thing as home loans or auto loans, except the asset that's backing it is stock, right? And I'm saying that it's their own game because unlike a house or auto loan where you can shop around, if you're a customer of the brokerage account, and let's say you're a high net worth individual, you have $5 million of stocks and bonds. A lot of them have appreciated for a long time. So you have a huge amount of unrealized capital gains, right? And so you don't want to sell them, because if you do, then you hit a tax, there's a huge tax hit, unless they use some of these tax deferral strategies that you are quite familiar with on your podcast. But in practice, they also have, like a trading account that typically is maybe tax deferred, maybe it's just regular taxable account. And so, well, I want to, fund some renovations for the house, right? Now, the nice thing is that they can then just say, well, look, you have an asset. Why don't we just unlock some equity by borrowing against it? So that's essentially what stock margin lending is. Now, a lot of people have different names for it, different labels, and obviously traders use this because if they can borrow against the assets, they can get more leverage, right? If you have $5 million, you borrow $1 million, you can use that to just buy more stock. And obviously, if the stocks go up, you make more money than you would otherwise. The other version of this is for consumption, right? So you want to buy new TV or renovations. And similarly, you'd rather just borrow against it to get the benefits of the cash. And at some point, you get dividends and something like that, and it almost just pays for itself. So this is the bank's own game because you are a captive audience. You cannot borrow from another bank. Your brokerage sits with them, which means that they get to charge essentially what rate they want. Now, obviously, there's some amount of competition because they could move all their assets from one brokerage to another brokerage to the bank. But some people are lazy, and in practice, regardless of your net worth, that's the same consideration. They're going to fill out the paperwork with another bank. I like my relationship manager at this bank, so on and so forth. And so you essentially don't get the best rate, and they essentially get to keep that interest for themselves. So that is the game that banks play.
Okay, make sure I got that here because I think it's making some sense. So the game they make is they make a spread on the capital that's already invested with them, and they let you borrow against it, right? And part of that's because if you don't borrow against it, you're going to get hit with capital gains tax, right? So they kind of have, in one sense, people are feeling trapped with that, and then if you're already in the account, right, they kind of have you as a captive audience, meaning they can kind of charge you maybe higher than normal if it was a lot of competition. Is that a fair summary, Ivan?
That's right. And a lot of people that are in this situation, they're not professional traders, right? So if they've done well in whatever the business is, they've accumulated wealth, and they're like, hey, look, I'm just doing some passive investments, right? And so they want something that can, hey, look, we're going to smooth out some of my expenses. I have a chunky purchase coming up. I can use this account to do that. So they're not really super careful about what they're looking at in terms of the interest rates. They're not like a hedge fund that's like, haggling for 5 basis points across investment banks. They're just like regular folks, small business owners and things like that. And then they give you the opportunity to do this thing, which is a convenience for you and a benefit to them.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's a good game that they're playing there. So that's secret number one. What's secret number two?
So the secret number two is essentially where, if you think about it in the crypto context, a lot of the stuff that's happening in the investment banking, right, which is essentially a lot of it shuffling the money around between different counterparties, contracts, and honoring those contracts, some of those are quite operational, right? So the piping in the financial system is not super high tech. So when I was a trader or a portfolio manager at Bank of America, the trade would be done with chat, right? So I thought, hey, look, we are now at the pinnacle of a money center bank, and then we now understand how the big boys, so to speak, play. And ironically, they're the most old-fashioned of the players. You go and ask Goldman Sachs, you ask Morgan Stanley, hey, can you make a market in 2-year swap rate? What do you see, the fives, threes, whatever spread? Now, all of these things, you type in the chat, they give you a number, and then you wait for a little bit, you maybe think about it for a minute, and it's like, yeah, okay, you're done. And then at the end, people send out emails, and that's how they actually do the confirmation of a trade. And these could be like hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars trade, and that's kind of how that happens. Now, obviously, there's a relationship built behind it. So the counterparty, you trade with them all the time. So some of this becomes less formal because of that. But the piping and architecture of how you verify these transactions is still very old school, which leads to a lot of operational risks because sometimes you type something wrong, right? Sometimes you send an email, it's the wrong details. Or sometimes the trader misunderstood what you said and you wanted to buy it, but they thought you were going to sell, right? And so in that process, essentially, most of the issues have surfaced. And a lot of times that we're working overtime is really just to try to get those confirms right, just to understand and make sure that the counterparty understands what the positions that you have on with each other.
Okay, so operational and just potential clerical errors or lack of good technologies and and techniques to just make the day-to-day trades. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
The secret is to really get to the, I guess, the, let's say the web 3.0, if you will, right? Where
Yes,
people are looking and trading. Is that a fair summary for secret number 2?
that's right.
Excellent.
That's right.
What's secret number 3?
So the secret number 3 is where crypto comes in. Crypto kind of solves both of those two previous issues in a way that is benefiting mostly the customer, the end user. And it does that because one, in crypto, instead of having very highly paid professionals, legals, accountants, compliance people, all those things are enforced by essentially the smart contracts that operate on the blockchain. You just pay a few cents, you pay the transaction fee, and essentially that is the extent of your involvement with the investment bank, so to speak. So there's a huge opportunity on the abstract sense for a lot of the financial technology in blockchain to disrupt not small low value add businesses, but huge high value add investment banking like activities. And one of the industries that being disrupted is essentially the stock margin lending slash collateralized lending side of the business, because you have digital assets that live on the blockchain, you have exchanges that live on the blockchain 24/7, and you have the smart contract that manages the cash flows on your behalf. So essentially, you can liquidate things in real time and undertake this business with significantly lower risks and significantly lower overhead.
Excellent. So crypto is going to be able to solve 1 and 2 through its technology, through its transparency, through its low cost way to transfer capital. We're talking with Ivan Zhang. You can go to pennyworks.com. That's pennyworks.com to learn more about him. We're talking about how to beat the banks at their own game with crypto. Excellent. Anything else that I haven't asked you that you want to mention about what you guys do and how you help your clients?
Right. So we essentially take that third step where we create a legal entity so that you can invest in us like a traditional financial instrument. Is a private offering promissory notes. And we go place that capital on these lending platforms that serve borrowers that would like capital. And we do this on a collateralized basis, which means that it's very difficult to lose principal simply because we're able to liquidate any borrowers in real time. And in the recent financial crisis or crypto crisis, so to speak, in the last couple of months, even though crypto assets were highly volatile, 60, 70% drawdowns, we suffer no losses. And that's the amazing thing that we want to provide users, because now you, by simply purchasing our notes, are able to participate as if you were the bank lending to those people that needed asset-backed loans. You could never do that before. Nobody will let you do that. But now, even if you wanted to do it with $500, you can do it through Pennyworks.
Wait, make sure I capture all that. Okay, so what you're saying is you guys set up a fund or something that has promissory notes. Okay,
Yep.
People put their crypto into these to fund it.
Just cash.
Just
cash.
cash. Got it. Just
Yeah.
cash. And then from there, you guys go to exchange markets, right? And maybe
Yes.
lend it out.
Yep.
And even though there was obviously a huge crash that happened, you're saying how are you guys able to not lose any money? Were you guys able to see that happening and get out? I mean, like what happened?
So it's enforced by the blockchain. So that's the nice thing. So every time we lend out $1, right, the minimum collateral requirements are, let's say, 125 to 135%, right? And the smart contracts and all the people that participate in it essentially says the moment you dip below that collateralization level, even by 0.0001%, we liquidate you. And we can liquidate you not like in 5 minutes, not in 10 minutes, but essentially at the next block or nearly instantly, because the marketplaces in which those assets trade also live on a blockchain. So it's not even like in the traditional finance where first you have to, hey, look, you have to transfer me the stock, right? And it's like a T+1 settle to get the stock. And then I have to wait for the exchange to open. And by the way, stock exchanges only open like 18% of the time, right? And then you can trade it. So, it's almost like a joke, like, the CEO of Goldman Sachs and then the chairman of the Federal Reserve meet on a Saturday night. Are they able to liquidate stock? No, right? The two most powerful folks in the financial system would not be able to get that done. And because there's no trading gap, this is where you significantly reduce your risk, because the moment they get below like 124.999%, you liquidate. So you have a huge amount of buffer, and you can do this in a very quick time frame. So the risk of loss is very, very low.
Okay, so let's walk through practically where like Celsius, for example, or these different platforms. Where are you actually? Where is the capital going? What companies is it going to? And the moment it liquidates, are you having like a Kraken or a Celsius or wherever the money's at? Is it going right back to the bank account? Like walk us through that part of it, because
Sure.
I'm not quite grasping where the money went and why it's not subject to those other people, seizing everything up, right?
So there's two types of exchanges, and that's one thing that is also novel about the blockchain. You have the traditional exchanges, which is the Kraken, the Coinbases, the Geminis out there that you're familiar with, right? These are traditional companies. You send money there, they have an order matching kind of engine, and then they also custody all your assets so that you can give it, the money from one person to another, and then the crypto and vice versa. The other type of exchange is a decentralized exchange, where the exchange itself is on the blockchain. And the way you think about it is pretty straightforward. The blockchain has your stable coins, which are your dollar equivalents, right, on the blockchain. And it also has your crypto, such as your Bitcoin, your Ethereum, and so on and so forth. So it's very natural to say, hey, look, we're just going to have a contract, in which case every time you give me some of this one asset, I give you some of the other assets. And all of a sudden, that's an exchange, right? Now, it may be not as super high frequency as the Krakens of the world and so on and so forth, but it is safe in the sense that the lending marketplace is also on the blockchain, which means that within a single transaction, you can take the funds from the lending marketplace, put it onto the decentralized exchange, liquidate the assets back to stablecoins within 15 seconds.
Wow. So if I'm hearing you right, you're really not having to rely on like a Celsius or another group. You're already just on the blockchain by yourself. And upon exit, it can go back into your own wallet. I guess it would be your cold storage, or where do you make sure you protect it, that it's not having to get to a Kraken or get to a Coinbase?
Well, so that's the thing that people are not familiar with yet, right? So right now, all of your financial assets, you never hold them. Even your bank account, the moment you put the money in the bank, it's technically not your money anymore. They just say, oh, like we owe Brett some money at some point, right? Now, everything in crypto is a bearer asset, which means that the one that holds it or the one that controls it owns it. There's no like legal title to it or whatnot, right? And in order for you to control those assets, you use a crypto wallet. Similarly to if you were maybe in the late 90s, like you have to use this new device called like a modem or something like that. People were like, well, what's a modem? Why do I need it? Why does it shut off my internet, or why does it shut off my phone line when I'm using it, right? So there's all these kind of misunderstanding about what that is. But it means that you're able to securely custody those assets yourself. Now, a lot of people just don't want that responsibility, right? Because you never had to do it. And so that's kind of where we come in and say, hey, look, we are the ones that are managing that for you, right? We know good security practices. We know which protocols to interact with. We know which ones not to interact with, right? So it's as much as what we're doing as it is what we're not doing, right?
Excellent.
And we share that expertise simply because we've been in this space for so long. So we've been using it. We've been benefiting from it for almost 4+ years now. And we essentially just want to say, hey, look, we want to bring this out to the wider public.
Excellent. So what's the average return if someone puts $100,000 with you, and do they need to be an accredited investor? And what does that look like as far as returns?
Yeah, pretty straightforward. This is not going to hit the ball out of the park. We're offering 4 to 6% at this point, depending on the amount that you place with us. But it's daily liquidity. So it looks and feels kind of like a checking, a savings account. Obviously, we're not a bank, so you need to be a accredited investor. This is offered as a Reg D 506C. We have a lot more information on our website. So, just as a disclaimer here, we're not trying to offer or sell securities at this point.
Yep, perfect. Sounds good. Are you ready to transition into a little bit of capital gains tax, right? Because one of the biggest things we found is people get frustrated when they want to exit these highly appreciated cryptocurrency positions, right? And you bought Bitcoin. I had a client who bought it for 50,000, went to 50 million, and we were able to exit using our deferred sales trust out of the 5 million when Bitcoin was 54,000 a coin.
Right.
And then now, Bitcoin is about 20,000 a coin. So they got out at a good time, deferred about 1.85 million of tax. Another one that had Ethereum, he bought it for 100,000 and it went, up and down 6 million to 2 million to 9 million to 3 million and did this whole thing. And he had wanted to exit, but he never had a good capital gains tax deferral plan until he met us. So I'm curious, what is your biggest frustration when it comes to exiting cryptocurrency as it pertains to capital gains tax?
Yes. So there's two things about this. One is if you have an outright position in crypto, which is what you mentioned before, that is definitely a challenge for people that have huge appreciated assets. It's very difficult to get out without paying tax. And because the appreciation came so fast, there are even situations which people owe more tax than their net worth, right? If you're talking about Shiba coin or some of the other ones where it just goes parabolic and goes down 90%, right? So that is a very difficult one to manage. The other one is the fixed income aspect of it, right? So DeFi, which is kind of where we operate in, and that's the product we have, it's so fairly new that most of the crypto software aren't very able to deal with the tax implications of interest rate accrual accounting. And so that creates difficulties for people that participate, because simply it's like, how do I just do my taxes right? Right. So now when you talk about how much taxes, how do I even do it right? Right. So that is one challenge for people that invest in, especially like over collateralized lending, because you might be like, hey, look, I put 100 grand in there, right? And I make like 5 to 10% or something like that, which is pretty respectable, especially since it's daily liquidity. And now I was like, well, I don't know how to do my taxes. You have to pay an accountant 5 grand to do the taxes for you, right? And the benefit about our product is simply because with a promissory note, we give you a 1099 in the year. The taxes onus is on us and not on you, right? So we just say, hey, this is how much we paid you in interest, and then you just have this number. You put it into your end of year tax form, and you're done. And what better way to also save on taxes if you are able to put this in a tax deferred investment vehicle? Right. So I'm not super familiar with the sales trust that
Deferred Sales Trust. Yeah.
Deferred Sales Trust, but a common strategy is that a lot of people have self-directed IRAs, right? So you have those accounts where you have the flexibility to invest, and for fixed income product, that's kind of where the best place where you can get basically all the yield without any of the downsides.
Excellent. No, I love the way you say that. And it makes it simple with the 1099, the promissory note. In fact, we're like kind of like cousins in one sense. In our scenario, you can exit the crypto into actually transfer the crypto into a deferred sales trust, which is a part promissory note and part and it's an installment sales, what it is, and a part trust. Now from there, it can go into other assets, right? It can go into lending. It can go into real estate. It can go into the stock market. It can sit in the bank, and there's no timing restrictions. And so it's essentially what's happening is this trust is lending or you're lending to the trust in exchange for a promissory note. Let's say you exit at 5 million of Bitcoin, you would have paid 1.85 in tax. And you're like, well, you know what? I want to delay that. I want to delay the tax, and I want it to live off the interest. And as you live off the interest, you likewise, you get a 1099 INT. Right. And it's really simple. All you do is get 1099 and you report it. And the first year you'll report as an installment sale. Right. But moving on, if you live off the interest, you're good. If you dip into principal, you pay cap gains tax. By the way, if anyone wants to learn about this, you can go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. It's capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. You can join our free mastermind, download our free ebook as well. Get a chance to learn if you have $1 million net proceeds, $1 million gain. We have a no cost complimentary call to walk you through to see if it could be a good fit. That being said, Ivan, are you ready for the lightning round?
Oh, sure. I did not know, but yes, let's do it.
All right. Knowing what you know now, if you could go back to your 25-year-old self, what's the one golden nugget and make sure to tell yourself to do?
Ask more questions and be, I would say, less confrontational. I think at 25, I felt like I knew more than what I do now. And I was more confident about what little I knew. And obviously, as you grow, you are learning that the world is so much bigger than you can imagine. And so that's what I would advise.
Excellent. That's great. Yeah. Question number 2, what's the number one book you've recommended or gifted the most in the past year?
Does it have to be work related?
No, could be anything.
So I like the series. I like the series called Off to Be the Wizard, which is a sci-fi series where the premise is that some of these geeks find this hidden program that essentially controls the entire world. So it essentially means that you are living a simulation, but they're kind of geeks and they know how to program. So they end up being able to go back in time and get into these ridiculous situations where they solve by building more programs that essentially allowed them to, do magic. And that's their account of historically how wizards came about.
That's really cool. It sounds
Yeah, yeah,
fascinating. I'm gonna
yeah,
check
yeah,
that one off to beat the wizard. Off to beat the wizard.
yeah.
Very, very cool. Question number 3. What are you most curious about right now, Ivan?
I think this is a little bit more of like a business thing because given the massive upheaval and recent macroeconomic events, I think what I'm most curious about is when does the central bank of the United States, the Federal Reserve, taps out and says, you know what, we've inflicted enough pain on the economy, and it's time for us to lay off the brakes and get people back on track. Yeah, that's what I'm most curious about. A lot of people are betting that they rather come sooner than later, but unfortunately, every indication so far has been that the Fed would rather it come later rather than sooner.
Very well said. Last question, Ivan. After all the people you've helped build wealth with pennyworks.com and everything that you've learned and built so far, what's the habit that you practice to stay centered in your values? And how do you stay encouraged to charge forward to reach new heights?
Having people that are dear to you and knowing that essentially the efforts that you're doing are mainly to make sure they have a better life. And that's not necessarily just limited to family, but the friends that you have and relationships you develop. How do you maintain them? How do you grow them? Those are the real assets in your life, right? So the counter question would be like, if you lost all your stocks or your crypto or all your wealth, right? What would change about your life, right? But what wouldn't change? And that's kind of the thing that got me thinking.
That's amazing. Hey, Ivan, I want to thank you for being on the show. I want to encourage you to keep using your gifts of being stubborn and also being persistent, right? To discover new things, new ways to change the wealth world, right? And to help more people create and preserve more wealth. For listeners who want to get in touch with you or find you, would you mind everyone? What's the best place for them to find you?
Yeah, so our website, pennyworks.com. We're also on LinkedIn and Twitter. You can also find myself, Ivan Zhang. You can just Google it. Pretty straightforward. We're pretty open. If you want, you can give me a shout directly for any questions. Looking forward to hearing from you guys.
Amazing. Thanks, Ivan, for being on the show. And also thank your listeners for listening to another episode of the Capital Gains Tax Solutions Podcast, also streaming on Expert CRE Secrets, where we believe most high net worth individuals and those who help them, they struggle with clarifying their capital gains tax deferral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy. And using a proven tax deferral strategy such as the Deferred Sales Trust is an amazing way for you to exit cryptocurrency, businesses, primary homes, save a failed 1031 exchange so you can defer capital gains tax and create and preserve more wealth. Hey, if we can help you out, we would love the opportunity to do so. You can go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com to get started on building a tax deferral exit plan. Check out our mastermind, check out our free ebook. Mastermind is every Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 p.m. PST, and we will talk to everyone again real soon. Please rate, review, subscribe. Please share, tap that bell if you're watching this on YouTube for the next